Hey everybody, it's Mike from The Mike Wagner Show. If you like The Mike Wagner Show and you want to make your own podcast, well, let me tell you about Anchor. First of all, it's free. Secondly, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can also add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. You can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios.
Hi, this is Mia Mosinzia, also known as Mia No Time for Love. Check out my latest book, Missing, available in print and ebook formats on Amazon.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios and sponsored by international award-winning author Mia Mosinzia of Missing. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on over 40 podcast platforms, as well as HamiltonRadio.net, Diamonds FM, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We can be heard in over 100 countries, featuring over 1,000 well-known and amazing guests throughout the globe. And named one of the top 100 global podcasts in the New York Weekly Times, Hollywood Entertainment News, Los Angeles Weekly Times, Apple, and Chartable. So sit back and relax and enjoy another great episode of the award-winning Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs, and brought to you by our official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international war-ring author Mia Mosinzia of Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with a terrific lady who is an award-winning children's advocate in digital media, affecting children ranging from social media to violence in the news. She worked 3 decades to improve the lives of young children. Recently, she was a senior advisor to Governor Gavin Newsom of California, focusing on the early childhood development. Also served in executive and various leadership roles in implementing a number of things. Also involved in First Five, San Mateo, DC, and the state of California. Also leader in the implementing of the project Proposition 10. And she about the organization, it's basically becoming the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing and supporting the interdisciplinary, informative, and educating the public on child health and wellness when it comes to social media as well too. And of course, this has been in the news lately and a lot discussed as well too. This is something very important. If you have children, you might want to check this out. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from Plus Studios in beautiful downtown San Jose, the leader of Children's and Screens Institute of Digital Media and Child Development, ladies and gentlemen, Kris Perry. Kris, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Wow, what a pleasure. Nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Kris. So you're an award-winning child's advocate in digital media affecting children ranging from social media to violence in the news. There's been a lot of it. You worked 3 decades to improve the lives of young children, and you worked recently senior advisor to Governor Gavin Newsom in California, and also served in executive and leadership roles in First Five in San Mateo, California, DC, and the state of California. You're also one of the early leaders in implementing Proposition 10, and your organization's becoming the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing and supporting the interdisciplinary and informative and educating the public for children's health and well-being. And you have a new project, Children's and Screens, the Institute of Digital Media and Child Development. And before we get into all that, Kris, tell us how you first got started.
Wow, what a great introduction. Thank you so much for having me on. I think that my very first job out of graduate school was as a social worker here in the Bay Area, where families at that point in time were struggling with some of the very same things families are struggling with today. Just having enough to eat, having affordable housing, good transportation, good education, good healthcare. And it was those early days, those early years that led me to the position I'm in today, where I'm still thinking and working on how to make sure children have a healthy and happy childhood, that they're not experiencing harm or they're not exposed to harmful products. And I'm also looking for ways to provide support to researchers and others that are looking for answers to some of these hard questions about what is actually good for children and what's actually not good. And that may sound simple, but there are really complicated studies going on and other research to try to answer some of those questions.
And what are some of the research that you have are referring to as well, too, and since there's so many of it, especially some that are significant?
Yes. So the reason for the research is that we've seen this massive uptick in the use of digital media, social media by children, very young children even. And it's alarming in a sense that just 10 years ago, well, 12 years ago, in 2010 was really the first time we all had smartphones in our pockets and we were interacting with a social media app known as Facebook at the time, but now there are many, many more. Over that short amount of time, we've seen an increase from a few, percent of children on smartphones and social media to more than 84% of teens, 13 to 18, who are using social media every day. We know that they're also spending 2 hours and in some cases 9 and 10 hours a day on their phones, on social media. And all of that, when we don't really know how it's going to impact them, we don't know for sure that it's helping them. Early science, early research is starting to show us that there are increased cases of depression and social comparison, and there are some self-esteem issues emerging from this research, particularly around girls, teens, and tweens, because social media is really, if you think of it, really, it's a way to engage all of us in a product that is meant to provide profits to those companies. So the longer we're on that product, the more we're using it, the more money they're making. And so that motivation doesn't always lead to a sort of an altruistic approach to children. Children are seen as more sort of like customers rather than young, vulnerable people, which they are.
And of course, you talked about the early stages and everything else. We're trying to get some statistic as well too that especially on mental health, is like, what are some of the early returns when it comes to mental health so far at this point?
Yeah, so there is just, there isn't a significant amount of research, which is one of the reasons why Children and Screens and the Institute are so important to helping to solve some of these hard questions. So we need more funding and more research to answer more questions. But there is there are some findings that are showing that children who are on digital media many hours per day, many days per week, are starting to experience different symptoms. Everything from being agitated and anxious when asked to stop, to sleep deprived because they're on it late at night or all night, to worse outcomes such as anxiety, depression. In some cases, they're seeing that anxiety or comparison is leading to eating disorders and other more difficult symptoms. And so we're really trying to step back and take a hard look at what children are seeing, how it's impacting their self-esteem, how it's impacting their cognitive development, their cognition, and how it's just simply affecting their physical health. Are they active enough? Are they sleeping enough? Are they getting up and interacting with other people enough so that those critical early years when you're developing rapidly are maximized and you're spending more time with real people doing the things you need to do to grow up versus on a device, spending time on something that may or may not be high quality.
You mentioned about cognitive development being affected. How is that in a way being affected, and how's this all tied in?
Well, cognitive development starts really before you're born, from the time you're in utero till, frankly, until the day you die. Your brain is going through different developmental changes. We know this, that in the first 3 years of life, you gain more brain weight than you do the rest of your life. As much as 90% of your brain weight is acquired in those first 36 months of life. And if you're on a device, which is not typical, not common, but more and more I am seeing, I bet you are too, when you go out to dinner or you are waiting for a bus or you're waiting at an airport or doctor's office, parents are giving their smartphones to very young children to sort of entertain them, keep them busy while they're waiting to do something else as a way to keep the child calm and relaxed, because it can be hard to wait. It's hard to be bored. But what we know about brain development is that the more we interact with other humans, the more optimal our brain development is. We're actually wired to interact with others. We're social animals. And when we get in those very early years, it's really important to protect as much of the child's time from screens and more with adults or other kids as possible. As they get older and their brains are more developed, it's okay to introduce digital media, social media in small amounts, in controlled amounts, so that you know what your child's being exposed to and that you're actually able to engage with them around what they're seeing and what they're feeling when they're doing it, so that you can monitor how it's going. The final thing I'll bring up on cognition and brain development is one of the most important tasks of being a tween or a teen or a young adult is building more executive function, more self-control, more impulse control, more ability to plan ahead and execute on goals. And that is part of brain development as well. That comes a little bit later in childhood. So we know you're gaining brain weight when you're young, and we know you're perfecting different functions of the brain as you get older so that you can take on difficult tasks as an adult and manage difficult emotions, because look how hard it is to be in society today. There are lots of challenges, and we want kids to be as prepared as they can be and have the best chance they have to succeed. And overexposure to social media and digital media and devices has not shown positive outcomes. We're still checking with research to see, well, what are some of the negative outcomes so we can be more specific about this.
You brought up about having kids on smartphones, Androids, and all the devices and everything else. Many of us grew up on TV as well, too. Did TV have that same impact, harmful impact, or do you think TV didn't have much of an impact on us like kids are on social media?
Well, technology so you bring up a great point, right? Because there's always new technology coming. Television is a great example. Prior to that, I've heard people use the example of, the printing press was a form of technology. It changed the way we told stories or heard stories. We didn't just hear them, we read them. Now, television was a visual storytelling device. Now, with computers and digital media, we've moved into a different realm where the technology is persuasive. It's designed to tailor itself to you. The more you interact with it, the smarter it gets, and the more it engages with you in the way you want to be engaged with, the more it tells you what you want to hear, what you want to see. That is different fundamentally from a television, which is a passive viewing experience and is the same for everyone. When you move to these social media apps or honestly, even search engines, right, are curating content for you minute by minute based on what you search, what you stay longer on, et cetera. And I know people know this in your audience because it's becoming it's just really obvious. You go to type a sentence and it finishes the sentence for you. So it's not hidden from us. What we're trying to do at Children's Screens is say, okay, as adults, we make informed decisions about what we do and don't use. But for children, they're not really able to make informed decisions because their brains aren't fully developed and we don't really have all the information yet about what's either good for them or not good for them.
Mm-hmm. And we have some guidelines as well, too, that parents can take to safeguard their children. We'll talk about that. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war-ring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews. And Eve 11 enjoys by Howard celebrities including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for it goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, over 40 podcast platforms, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, iTunes, and also on Apple Music as well, too. YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, heard on HamiltonRadio.net every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and a few networks coming soon. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/me and for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also t-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/me and Check it out today. Also support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. We're here with the award-winning children's advocate in digital media, Kris Perry, here on the Mike Wagner Show, heading up the Children's and Screens Project, Institute of Digital Media and Child Development. And before we get into the guidelines, and give us an overview about Child and Screens, and a quick overview and how it came about.
Oh, well, that's a great question. We came about a little over 10 years ago, and our founder was similar to many of the parents that are listening today, was a little bit surprised and concerned when her children, mostly her son, started to use digital media. In this case, it was video games, in such a way that it really surprised her, and it actually made her look for information. What is this? Why does he seem different? Why is he agitated? Why is it hard for him to stop? What do I do as a parent? There really weren't very many answers, so she, as a physician, decided to launch an institute to research these questions more deeply, and has been supporting the work ever since that time. And the work itself really is funding new research to answer some of the questions I'm talking about today, but also translating the science that many people are doing around the world around these topics, so that parents can understand the research more easily and policymakers can understand the information. And we hope that when that science is translated into more understandable language, that people will take action either in their own homes with their own children because they have the information, or in the case of policymakers, they'll say we should help all parents. We shouldn't leave everything to individual parents to figure out. Maybe there are some protections we can put in place for children so that their parents don't have to be ahead of the game every day, every night. I'm sure people are worn out by this because it turns into a bit of a power struggle when you're especially as your children get older and they have a lot of autonomy to say, I want you to put that phone away. I want you to leave your phone in the kitchen overnight. I want you to leave your phone at home when you're at school. It just turns into a really tough conversation, and parents are weary of the conversation at this point.
Mm-hmm. And also maybe think too that the use or abuse of phones has taken place even in restaurants as well too. And I'll share my story of it. I took my family out to a nice Mexican restaurant in Western North Dakota and met by a singing waiter who was very entertaining. And we're sitting there having our meal, and he was sitting there singing away. We're all enjoying it, and he was the only one that do it there. And the other people like, how come you're not coming to our table? He says that's because they're on their phones. That's why. So. And I just want to share a great story. The fact that you don't have to be on your phone all the time. It's like you can just sit there, eat, and be entertained. And the only time you look up at your phone is when you're trying to get information, answer a question. But you're not on here just to look at news or see what's going on Facebook and Instagram, or unless you want to just figure out, what's the bill, what's the charge, get reviews and everything else. So that's just another case. And of course, speaking about how long a teen should be on. There are rules we had back in days, like you're only allowed to watch, like, say, 2 hours of TV, 1 hour of TV, 3 hours of TV. It depends on if it's like day, month, week, and everything else. And how much screen time are children allowed to be on their phones, their tablets, and all the multimedia devices? How long do you think? What's the recommended screen time for kids these days?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there really isn't such a thing as a recommended amount. The one thing I can point to that the APA says for children under 2 years of old, they really shouldn't be on screens at all. As children get older, they're preschool age, school age, they can, I think small amounts, a couple of hours a week if they're very young, maybe an hour a day as they get closer to school age. And the longer you can hold off giving it to your children for lengthy periods, the easier that whole trajectory is. If you start off with big chunks when they're very young We talked about brain development. They are acquiring, a preference for screen time over maybe other things like running around outside with their friends or sitting in the living room talking to you while you fold laundry. The things that you would like them to be doing, you're going to be competing with that device. So the later you can put that off, the better. The question you also asked is like, what can you do if you do have teenagers and they have had a smartphone for a long time? This is where we really strongly suggest that families have almost like a media plan where you sit down together and parents too, because parents are guilty of being on their phones at the dinner table, being on their phone in the car, being at their phone in restaurants. So you kind of have to come to this conversation knowing that it's time for you to make some changes too, but you're modeling what's important to your kids, which is that face-to-face conversation, interaction that you just described so beautifully. And you can create that plan together. Everybody's old enough to talk about how many hours per day, old enough to talk about when to put it away at night so they can get some sleep, when they can, what apps are maybe okay and some that maybe aren't so okay. And then I'll talk about something that's very sensitive. And as children get older, they're more and more they're exposed to violent video games, pornography, other kinds of violence. And you really want to keep tabs on not only how much screen time, but what they're viewing while they're on their screens, because they're both important questions to talk to your kids about.
And also violence in the news as well, too, with all the
Yes.
shootings and everything else. I mean, we don't need to go into that. So it's like, I guess how much of filter can you apply to all the news stories that's going on and how much content can they handle? And, what if the kid decides to, copycat after that shooter? And plus, there's also been some hacking going on. And of course, kids have the ability to hack into people's phones and other phones in as young as 3, 4, and 5. It's like, how can that be prevented and monitored?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up that other point. It's not just smartphones and tablets and devices, it's the television. That's considered a screen, and there is content that can be violent, and kids are seeing more and more violent content on the news. And so there are there's lots of different advice, but it's very much case by case, and it is helpful to understand at what age your child is being exposed to this, how to interact. What most of these experts are saying at this point is, if this happens, it's really important to engage in a conversation with some open-ended questions. You don't have to come at it and say, you saw that horrible thing on the news, here's what it meant, here's why it happened, launch into an explanation. Better to step back and say, I noticed that the TV was on while that story about the school came up. What did you think? What did you see? What do you want to know? And that's also just good advice in general with children, is the more you can listen and ask open-ended questions, the more you'll learn about what they're actually processing, what they actually think, and what may actually be going on. Lots of times parents tell funny stories about asking, they're really worried that the child's had a very difficult experience, and they find out the child wasn't really even paying attention and didn't notice or couldn't process it, and so it's an easier conversation than they expect it to be. Mm-hmm. But again,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The advice always is be as aware as you can be and communicative as you can be, because you're sending also the message to the child: I'm here and I'm available to talk about these things, even if I miss it. You can always come back to me and ask me a question later.
And then how can the parents walk the line in terms of monitoring our kids' behaviors without violating their privacy? That seems to be a real tough issue. How can they walk the line?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And especially as children get older and they get closer to adulthood and they're experiencing their own autonomy and their own individualness. But I want to, again, like I said earlier about parents having to model, it may seem like it's a privacy issue, but in fact, they're still children. And it's probably a device you own and pay for, or pay for the subscriptions and et cetera. It's your internet, it's your power bill. This is your device. You're allowing your child to use it. And so one thing just to try to remember is that you're doing something that may feel unfair or you're violating their privacy rights, but in fact, those aren't actually the same as if you were an adult and you had rights to privacy. So we want to walk that fine line. And again, communication. If your child, if you feel that they're being open with you about what they're seeing and what they're doing online, and you feel comfortable with them having their device, I think, you have to trust them. But sometimes I think parents have often feel like there's something going on that isn't great. There are kids that are being cyberbullied. There are kids who are experiencing, terrific anxiety because they have the fear of missing out. They don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like they're good enough. They're not popular. They're exposed to such large numbers of other children online that isn't typical. Like if you were at just a school campus, you wouldn't know this many teenagers. But when you're online, it's infinite. And so that raises anxiety in children in a way that is hard to manage sometimes. So yeah, go ahead.
It's also been a big issue with cyberbullying as well, too. And of course, there's been talk about government getting involved with some of these issues. And what do we make of it? And are we at a point, are we wanting the government involved, or are we just simply say, stay out of it?
Well, I mean, obviously people have very different views on how much government involvement is necessary. And I really respect that, that we all want our privacy. And as adults, we should, stand up for what we believe in. In the case of children, what's worrisome is that they're being marketed to, their data is being collected and sold.
Oh my
And they're
gosh.
also being, as I said earlier, because technology is persuasive and intelligent, it's really, really hard to stay ahead of the content coming at them. And even the settings on their phones being changed so that more and more information is flowing out of their phone, including images of them all over the internet. And so what we think is necessary at the Institute is not only more research to help us understand what exactly is going on with these apps, but some basic protections that go in that protect all children. In other words, you have to opt in to, not opt out of certain privacy settings. You have to have parental permission. You have to be of a certain age, because we know that the brain is not yet developed enough to know to do certain things. Adults don't always know these things. So we look to policymakers to put some protections in place for children so that they're not leaving childhood with a digital footprint that they can't undo and will follow them for a very long time.
And of course, any positives in terms of what kids are doing online?
Yes, there are some positives. It's really been great to see some interesting community building efforts and social movement efforts. And you probably can think of a few, but we know, like around environment and climate, that young people are coming together online across the world to talk about what they can do, how they can be active. There are communities like LGBTQI teens that are often isolated and don't have any friends like themselves where they live. They can go into communities where they find other teens like themselves. And then finally, I didn't mention this, especially with young children, but all kids, video chatting with family members, having fun with real people like we're doing right now for a while is fine. This is also a really positive use of screen time. It allows for some connection. And during the pandemic, we know how isolated the kids were, and that one of the positive things was being able to see friends online. And so we really encourage that connection.
And that's a very good thing as well, too. And where can we find more information? How can they access children and screens?
Please visit our website at www.childrenandscreens.com, where we have access to all of our Ask the Experts webinars, many of which have covered topics we've covered today, Mike. But also we have tip sheets. We also have summaries of all the legislation that's moving through Congress and some of the states. And finally, we have updates on events that are going on that parents may want to attend, or things that they may find interesting.
We'll certainly check that out. And what's coming up for Kris Perry and Children's and Screens in 2022 and beyond, we'll find out just 1 minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. And brought to you by our official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international war-wearing author Mia Molson-Zia Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with Kris Perry of Children's and Screens after this time out.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com. SonicWebStudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hey everybody, my name is Forbes Riley, and I'm an American actress and a TV host. And I was delighted when I got my copy of Missing, which is Extraordinary Relation of Ordinary People based on a real life relationship. It's well written. It's amazing. You know, it talks about a man who has lost his wife and his daughter, and it's very well done. I'm going to highly recommend that you go get your copy of Missing. It is a powerful, exciting read. Mr. Mian Moshe Zia. He is the author of Missing. And I want to give a big shout out and a kiss all the way halfway around the world to my dear friend. Check him out at Mia's website. It's called www.miamotionsea.com. Missing, available on Amazon. Again, I'm Forbes Riley, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Ray Powers, and boy, are you in luck. Right place, right time. Tuned in to The Mike Wagner Show. You heard me.
We're back with Kris Perry of Children's and Screens Institute of Digital Media and Child Development here on The Mike Wagner Show. Very informative topic and very important discussion and something to learn. And we hope for those who are watching and listening out there, parents and children, we hope you take all this information and apply it as well too. And what else can we expect from you and your organization in 2022 and 23 and beyond, Kris?
Thanks for the question. We're going to have our 10th anniversary next year. So we're going to kick off the year with a gala in January where we'll be hosting a presidential lecture with Frances Haugen, who was the Facebook whistleblower, who in many ways peeled back some of the layers of what's going on in social media companies and how they're collecting data and how they're perfecting it. So that'll be a really exciting event to hear more from her. In the middle of the year, we'll be putting together a supplement, which is a big research journal for cross-disciplinary researchers to come together and talk about this issue. And then in the fall, we're having our third scientific congress in Washington, D.C., where we'll bring researchers together from around the world to learn more, but also to talk directly to policymakers and seek some support and help from them on some of these issues.
We'll certainly keep up to date on that as well too. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career, Kris?
Oh, what a great question. I'd have to say Marian Wright Edelman, who launched the Children's Defense Fund and is still an advocate today for children, particularly children furthest from opportunity.
Okay, and what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Listen. Pay careful attention to what you're hearing and make steps to improve problems that you know are important right now.
And most importantly, put down your phones when necessary. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do sometimes. Yes, I agree.
I forgot to do that. I forgot to remind everybody to put down the phones and listen, but we'll do that another time. We'll have you on. So we're here with Kris Perry with Children's and Screens Institute of Digital Media and Child Development here on the Mike Wagner Show. Kris, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people get more information about Children's and Screens and more?
www.childrenscreens.com.
All right, well, check that out. Once again, Kris, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish you all the best. And Kris, you and your organization have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hey everybody, my name is Forbes Riley, and I'm an American actress and a TV host. And I was delighted when I got my copy of Missing, which is Extraordinary Relation of Ordinary People based on a real life relationship. It's well written. It's amazing. You know, it talks about a man who has lost his wife and his daughter, and it's very well done. I'm going to highly recommend that you go get your copy of Missing. It is a powerful, exciting read. Mr. Mian Moshe Zia. He is the author of Missing. And I want to give a big shout out and a kiss all the way halfway around the world to my dear friend. Check him out at Mia's website. It's called www.miamotionsea.com. spreaker.com. Missing, available on Amazon. Again, I'm Forbes Riley, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show. Brought to you by international award-winning author Mia Mohsen-Zia of Missing. And powered by Sonic Web Studios. Be sure to join us again on over 40 podcast platforms. And of course on the MikeWagnerShow.com, HamiltonRadio.net, and Diamonds FM. Don't forget to support our program with a generous donation at the MikeWagnerShow.com. Thanks for listening.